Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another video in my series about my custom class, the Dragon Knight. This one specifically is going to talk about the Dragoon, one of the callings you can pick at level 3 for the Dragon Knight. Again, this entire video series is basically to explain the thought process behind a lot of the abilities to give you guys a better idea of how I intended the class to be played, and hopefully inspire you guys to play the class uniquely and really make it your own. So, the Dragoon. The Dragoon is based almost 100% on the Dragoon class from Final Fantasy in general. Kane Highwind inspired a lot of the abilities in there, and I'm a huge fan of Dissidia Duodecim, which is an old PSP game where you got to pick from a bunch of Final Fantasy characters and then got to fight. You know, it was an action-style game where you got to fight other bad guys. It was really, really cool. Kane was one of the guys you could do, and so a lot of the abilities that I put in there are specifically designed to mimic just some of the really cool effects that you could do in this game, and to really give the feeling to a D&D player, because this is something you couldn't do previously. Spears in general were not very well looked at in D&D. Like, they didn't have good damage abilities. Half the time you couldn't really use them for a lot of the different feats and things like that. Like, they were really a forgotten aspect of the game, and nobody almost ever uses them. So I wanted to put some stuff in there that would just make you feel really cool as a spear-type user. The Winged Spear. The Winged Spear, which is their dragon weapon. Again, the dragon weapons are designed to define the class itself. It's what makes the class work differently than anything else. And so each one has a lot of things that it changes about how you play the character, specifically in combat. The Winged Spear itself was designed to be, like, the Dragoon was designed to be the ranged version of the Dragon Knight class. Everything else is melee focused in it, and I wanted people to be able to play it as a ranged class, just because I want people to have options. So the spear itself was designed to be thrown mostly. Yeah, you can go up and poke people with it, but I didn't really envision too many people using that often. I envisioned it more throwing. And that's specifically because there's actually an attack in Duodecim where Kane just jumps up and throws his spear, and it does crazy damage. And I like that. I think that is a very Dragoon-type thing to do. And so that's what it was made off of. I specifically designed it as a ranged weapon so that people could take the sharpshooting feat if they wanted. By level 6, the range aspect of the sharpshooter feat no longer was a benefit because a Dragoon gets it automatically. But the additional damage is a really big deal, and it helps to keep it competitive with other classes as far as damage capability. So that's why it's a ranged weapon. Thus far, I haven't found any other abuse of this system, so I think I'm going to leave it that way. It has a similar range to, like, javelins and daggers and stuff like that. I didn't want this to be a ranger type thing where they could be 600 feet back and just chucking spears. That didn't make a whole lot of sense. But 60 feet away, that I could deal with. And I made it so that it would come back to your hand as a free action, simply because, again, any other ranged class would be able to keep a lot of ammo on them. This, because it's such a specific thing, that you can't keep 7 or 8 winged spears on you. So, and it also kind of defined the relationship that the Dragoon has with their dragon weapon. They can control it mentally. So, yeah, that's basically what it was. The aerial acrobatics. This was the Dragoon. One of the defining features of the Dragoon is the fact that it is not a 2D combat class. All of Dungeons & Dragons right now is mostly two-dimensional. You don't really have multi-level fights and things like that in it. It's not really designed for that, and that's why I added in aerial acrobatics, so that the Dragoon could attack from above, could move vertically. Most of the abilities that the Dragoon has are based on this idea of let's get as mobile as possible. Let's add an additional plane to this battle. One of the things that I play in the D&D Adventure League is a Shadow Monk, and I constantly will try to find ways where I can attack from above and use levels and things like that, because I think it adds a lot more creativity to combat and makes it a lot cooler. So that's what aerial acrobatics was basically giving them the ability to jump up to a second floor type level and still be able to do things. Aerial strike is jump. If you've ever played Final Fantasy anything and it had a Dragoon class, jump is their ability. They jump into the air, then they land on another target and do extra damage because of it. That's all it was designed to do. Now, due to the fact that Final Fantasy is turn-based RPGs and this is a tabletop RPG, I had to add a few extra things. Now, nothing the Dragoon does is meant to do significant damage. They are designed to be much more versatile in moving around and being a very mobility-based class. So I specifically put in that aerial strike could be used to get out of grapples. It could be used to move you without provoking opportunity attacks. It was designed to add additional mobility. It did do extra damage as well, which was good, but the purpose of it was to give you additional mobility so that the Dragoon, like in the middle of a bad fight, it could go in and get surrounded and then jump out and then continue doing its range damage. Winged Spear Mastery, each class has their level 6 ability is mastery over their particular weapon, and it changes how it works slightly. Winged Spear Mastery gave you, changed it from a 20-foot to a 60-foot range. And again, that just makes you much more focused on ranged attacks. I would think by 6th level, a Dragoon would be an entirely ranged-based character, except for using their aerial strike. They would be almost entirely ranged at this point. Piercing Spear was another thing that was kind of inspired by Cain, where one of his ability would just throw this spear out and it would do crazy damage. I wanted every class to have a dragon attack that could hit multiple targets. So this was the one that I did for the Dragoon. Again, it's one of those things. It's kind of based on the lightning bolt spell, where it's a bunch of people in a line. You can hit them. I made it a 60-foot range to give it the ability to be used a lot, because again, with the fact that it doesn't do a crap ton of damage, it's something that I wanted the range to be something that makes it a choice, a viable choice for them to do. And with the fact that it uses Dragon Die for additional damage, that means the higher they got, the better it was. And if they combined it with other things, like it's just one of those abilities that works well. I did make it a saving throw versus an attack roll, simply because that's how the lightning bolt spell works. So it doesn't mesh with the Dragoon transformation. That's something that I will keep looking at, and I may change eventually. But for right now, I like how Piercing Spear works. Improved agility. All classes at level 10 get something that is not designed to do anything for combat. It is 100% designed to focus on the other two pillars of 5th edition. And that's what improved agility is. Giving them a really high acrobatics ability keeps them on par with things like rogues who have their crazy ability to just add more and more and more things and get like 30, 30 plus on certain rolls. I wanted something similar to that, but only in one aspect, because that's what it's designed to do. Acrobatics is such a big part of the lore behind it. The moving along a vertical surface as if they were horizontal, I ripped that directly from the monk class. They have to be a higher level than the monk in order to do it, and I also didn't want to make it as easy for them to do it as it is for a monk, because it's one of the defining features of the monk class, and I don't want to take away that from this. So I did make it have a DC on it. By the time you get to, I think, like 13 or 14, double your proficiency bonus is going to be like a +8 to the check, and then adding in, even if you only have 3 dexterity, it's a +11. It means anything a 4 or above would succeed. By the time you get to a high enough level, you're fine. You never have to really deal with it. But it is in there to make it very, very clear that monks do it better, just flat out. Death from above was another thing designed to add layers to combat, make vertical combat a viable thing. This is really something that changes how the Dragoon fights. Again, up until 14th level, they're all about throwing their spear, and they're very much a ranged class. Death from above gives them an incentive to actually go back into melee again. And combining it with things like Death from above and then aerial striking out or other things really gives them a lot of options as far as how they want to play their character. They can run up a wall, flip off of it, jump down, hit them, and then aerial strike away, or even just run away because they don't provoke opportunity attacks after doing it, and go back to being the very cool class they are. Death from above adds that mobility into it to a very large level. It's designed to really emphasize the Dragoon is a hyper-mobile class that's designed to just be jumping around and doing crazy things. Draconic Drain. Another thing that I kind of took from Final Fantasy, one of the things that you see intermittently with your Dragoons is the ability to drain either magic points or health points from an enemy. I wanted something like that for the Dragoon in D&D, and so I created Siphoning Strike. All of the level 18 abilities, like one of the defining features of all of these is that each thing you get for your Draconic Calling will have like a dragon attack and something additional to it to make the class play differently. And we do that all the way up until 18th level. 18th level is just a very powerful, very useful dragon attack, and that's all it ever is. So Siphoning Strike, it's a self-heal, which can be incredibly useful, to the point of being almost overpowered depending on how you play it. If you combine Siphoning Strike with your dragon transformation, I specifically mentioned that it gets the additional damage from your dragon transformation. It gets the additional damage from everything. So you could use Siphoning Strike crits on anything from an 18 to a 20, and then just get crap tons of hit points back, making the Dragoon very, very difficult to kill at high levels. Because it's a level 18 ability, I felt that it was justified in giving them this very, very useful ability. And I think by that point, Siphoning Strike becomes one of the most used abilities of the Dragon Knight, simply because, again, you can go in, hit something, take a few hits, Siphoning Strike it out, and then go. Like it's designed to just make them very, very difficult to kill. So anyway, that is the Dragoon. I hope this gives a little bit better idea into like the theme behind it and how I envision the class, and I hope it inspires you guys to kind of give it a look and get a get some ideas on how you might want to play it and how you might want to make the class really your own. Because that's the best part of D&D, is taking a class and playing it in a certain way, or really just customizing it to fit the character and the story that you want to tell. All right? So anyway, that's all for me today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. All right? Bye-bye!